You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel.
Right up Meridian, baby.
All right, folks, welcome back to Right Up Meridian. I got Tony with me. By the way, I got a quick shout out. Thank you to everybody who came out to the event last weekend. It was awesome to see people. And it's kind of like that scene in Major League where Ricky Vaughn kind of takes off and he's like, oh, I got a fan. Like, we met Luke. Our fan's like, dude, listen to the Right Up Meridian podcast. It was like, dude, we got a fan. Like, Tony, we got somebody listening. It was awesome. So shout out to Luke. You're the man.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Love that meetup. And, while it was an IU meetup, to have somebody say like, hey, I listened to them Right Up Meridian pod. Fantastic. We're making moves here, Scott.
We are. We're like the Pacers GMs. Real quick, just as you know, Right Up Meridian is part of the Back Home Network. Back Home Network is sponsored by Homefield Apparel. They have a big drop coming out today. We're recording this Friday morning. Check it out. They have a bunch of stuff dropping, some new IU swag. That's all I'll say. So be ready to go. In fact, we got to wrap this up quickly so we can get on to do Homefield Apparel shopping. I will say this. I was at the Pacers team store, go to it a lot because I have season tickets there. And I was like looking at some of the hoodies for the All-Star game, and there's one that looks really slick. It's got like the old numbers, but it says Indy 24. I'm like, that's cool. Look in the tag, it's like Homefield Apparel. Like, they are in the Pacers team store. It's like they're everywhere. They're fantastic. So check them out. New stuff dropping today. I will lastly say, shout out to my son. Listen to your kids. Tony, this goes to you too. We just saw your kids a second ago. Listen to them. I have Pacers season tickets, as you know. I love going to games, and I like seeing all of the top players. I like being able to say that I've seen all of the players. And I think right now I've seen most of the top players that I want to see. And I've seen Steph Curry and the Warriors like 2 times. And it was fun. And normally, as a man of, some means, not enough means, it's like, I try and take teams like that. Like, I've seen LeBron a bunch of times. Like, I sell those tickets and try and make some of my money back. I was going to sell the Warriors tickets. And then my son's like, I really want to see Steph Curry. Like, I want to see him before he gets bad. And I'm like, all right, okay, we'll go. Like, I took him, and it was awesome because last night, the Pacers lost, which sucked, but it's like, that was a insane first quarter Curry performance to the point that like by the 6-3, the fans, like everyone's just cheering for him. And it was like, it's unlike anything I've seen in a while in the basketball court. Like, the best thing I was telling my wife is like, it's seeing a shark, like, because he'll just kind of stand and not do much for 2 or 3 plays. And then like, boom, he just like blows up and hits. And like the defenses are completely thrown off. Just humble brag. I was happy to see that.
The amount of space that he does not need to get a shot off is just insane. Like, when he hit that 6-3 from the logo, it wasn't like the Pacers were playing like some
he was double
lollygagging defense. Yeah, he was double teamed with not a lot of space and like nothing but net. Like, doesn't even hit a single part of the rim. Like, those performances are special. They're probably going to be more few and far between as we go forward. So your son made the right call.
I know. You always listen to your kids. No, it was wild to not only seeing it in person where you could really see, like, I think that was Siakam and Nesmith up on him. But it was like, he had 2 guys, but like, I kind of just kept my eyes on everyone else on defense. Like, every single Pacer was just watching him. Like, it was wild. Like, it is unbelievable the amount of space he creates for everybody else by just being such an amazing shooter. No, it was fun to watch, and he is something else, man.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of the Pacers, who looked a little lifeless last night. That was about as low of energy that I've seen them play with in some time.
Yeah, so I hope it wasn't because of the trade. So that's what we want to talk about is we get through free agency. I hope it wasn't because of the trade. It did feel like the Warriors were just clicking on a lot of cylinders, and I think when Steph started cooking, he didn't play that great the rest of the game, but he did finish with 11 threes. He was like 4 away from breaking the all-time record of threes in a game. He gave a lot of, got Draymond space, got Kuminga space. So I'm going to hopefully chalk that up to just the Warriors got hot, and that's still a scary team when they're playing well. What I hope it isn't, before we get into the trade stuff, like, I'll ask you, like, I hope it isn't like, Buddy Hield was the best, locker room guy, and the team was like pissed that he got traded. Although I will say this, Dustin DePurek had this as a tweet, and I completely agree with him. Like, there's a world where I know the NBA doesn't want to have, quiet nights, but you almost shouldn't play games the same day you have a trade deadline. Cause it's like, even if the Pacers are going to be fine, like, Buddy seemed like he was a solid locker room guy. So you're going to have some kind of residual effect of that much, a movement during the day of a game.
No, I totally agreed. It's kind of weird that they do have it on those nights. Obviously not to the magnitude of this, but it kind of reminded me like when they had the guys play the day Kobe died. Like,
Yeah.
there's no like energy in the building. Obviously, it's kind of somber, sad. Again, not on that magnitude, but
Right.
your buddy like left the company, and it's like, oh man, like it's not like the end of the world, but it's also like that kind of sucks, and it's hard to like get your energy up, same day, especially like for guys like maybe like an Obi Toppin or something. You're kind of wondering if you're going to move or not, and it sounds like the Pacers brass is pretty good about letting guys know when they're in trade talks, like, hey, we are, we're shopping you, or we've had this deal on the table or whatever. So, hopefully that can ease some of the anxiety, but that would be a weird feeling as a player, like kind of anxious until the final moment. Because those trades are firing off till 3 o'clock. It would be a little bit of a weird feeling, and then having to go like 3 hours later, go to shoot around and play. Like that'd be weird.
Yeah. I mean, and the Pacers had a deal with the Warriors. They're playing that night, although it never ended up with anything really. So, obviously you're not getting news here, but, so the Pacers, they trade away Buddy Hield. They basically do all of this to get Doug McDermott and a second round pick. Like, through all this maturations, they get Marcus Morris. They get Ferenc from the 76 guy I hadn't honestly heard of much.
Yeah, technically the NBA made it a 3-team deal. Like,
right.
The official trade was a 3-team deal.
And then the Pacers got 3 second round picks.
I want to hear you say that guy's name. You're always so good with names.
Oh, God. Come on, Tony. What are you doing? I got to pull up the 76ers. I don't even have that pulled up right now. Where is...
I put you on the spot.
You really did. Hold on. I can get it. Teams. This is just fantastic podcasting. He's still going to be on Basketball Reference. So let's go to the team roster. All right. Where is he? It is Furkan Korkmaz.
Korkmaz, that's pretty good.
Korkmaz, yeah. He's from Turkey. I don't know. I'm immediately thinking of like Gogo Batazzi. I'm like, I'm out on all those guys.
No, thank you.
So anyway, thank you for that, Tony. I appreciate it. Yes. I mean, there's no way I'm pronouncing that. I can barely get Marcus Morris right. So they get Marcus Morris back. They get Furkant. They get FK. That's what we're calling him. FK. 3 second round picks. They then trade, like you said, it's a 3-teamer. They get Doug McDermott. Morris goes to the Spurs. Morris gets waived. And then there's also another deal where, I mean, this gets so confusing. It's like the worst of those 3 picks goes to the Warriors. The Warriors then sent Corey Joseph here with enough money to buy him out and a little bit of extra. And then we get one of the Warriors' second round picks. So basically that was just a deal for the Warriors to save some money, and we get a second round pick anyway. So this all kind of comes out. You trade Buddy Hield, long story short, for basically Doug McDermott and a second round pick.
Yeah, and I believe McDermott is also on an expiring.
Correct. He is on an expiring. He is making $13.7 million this year, which is good for him. That's he signed a big deal with the Spurs. This is so when you look at it that way, it's like Hield for McDermott. I'm curious. I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on it? Like, initial reaction, and where you're at now with it?
It's tough a little bit because obviously you don't know the inner workings. Like, on paper, it's like not great.
Right.
Buddy Hield is one of the best shooters in the NBA. In NBA history. He's on the list there. I think in the last like 7 seasons, only Steph Curry's made more 3-pointers. And he's Tyrese Halliburton's best friend. So all of those things, like on paper, it's like, don't love it. Kind of weird. But at the same time, too, there's murmurs that Buddy Hield was not happy with his role here. He really wanted to be starting. And, if he made that, and the Pacers had also offered him a deal earlier in the year, an extension that he turned down. So all of those things, when you look at it, if he really wanted out, I think the Pacers did pretty good to kind of fill the role that he had in terms of getting back another shooter that can space the floor, that's a good cutter, and knows the system. He played for Carlisle in Dallas,
Right.
and so that helps as well. So if Buddy really, really wanted out, and they kind of did him a favor, uh, uh, you know, I don't love it because it's also an Eastern Conference foe that you could face in the playoffs. But if he really wanted out, and that's the value that you could get back for him on an expiring, then you kind of live with it. And I also come back to, it's really hard to question the Pacers brass in terms of trades.
Yeah.
Because they've really hit him out of the park. So we'll see. Buddy's numbers were certainly down this season. He just had a game where he only played 12 minutes, so it seemed like his role was diminishing as the year went on. Sure, he didn't love that. He's a competitor. He wants to play. So I think all those factors in there, is what helps me make sense of it more so than just what's on paper of kind of a Hield for McDermott trade.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of things. First off, I was also surprised that you had, I don't love going up against, an Eastern Conference team in a trade. Although it's weird, like the Bucks also traded with the 76ers to get Pat Beverly. It's like a lot of this, like, teams, like, you're going to probably face each other in the playoffs. It's just odd to see that. And it's going to suck if we play the 76ers and Buddy Hield goes off. But no, a lot of things there. I also don't love it. Like, we've been talking for a while. You knew you had to move Hield because of the contract extension. There was a world where I was kind of like, all right, do you just keep Hield and just roll with it and just like realize he's an expiring deal, and maybe he's not, I just don't know how unhappy he was with his role. And it looked like he wasn't going to re-sign with the Pacers anyway. So it's like, just roll it out and go this season. The thing that I'm not sure I like about this is I'm not sure what the Pacers, like you said, man, I got to trust the brass because they've been right, for 4 or 5 years putting this together. But I'm just not sure kind of what the plan is right now, because this felt like it's kind of like a not an all-in move, but like a win now move, but kind of like a win now move with a half foot in. Cause like McDermott's not exactly going to like put you over the top in an Eastern Conference playoff series. He's okay. He's good. But I look at it as like, we're building toward probably a couple years from now. And, why not try and get something else back that may have a little bit more residual value? All of that said, you never know what the value for this stuff is. Like, a lot of times, guys, you hear this talk of like, man, you got to get more for him. You got more. It's like, well, the market is what the market is. Like, it's just possible there wasn't a lot of market out there. Like, I think the Pacers for a while have been trying to trade, Miles Turner for a couple of years, and I just don't think they were getting back what they wanted to get back. And it's like, you can be pissed, but the market will tell you what it's worth. So it's very possible this was the best deal you were going to get back for Buddy Hield. But you are kind of left with, like, if you don't re-sign McDermott, which I'm not sure it makes any sense to do that, you kind of just got a second-round pick for Hield. Like, that's what it ends up being. And the majority of second-round picks normally never play in the league. So you kind of lost Hield for nothing. But again, I'm not sure there was like something out there where it's like there was a first-round pick or, a great asset you could have gotten for Hield in the first place. But that's where I kind of scratch my head, is it feels like you kind of lost him. You didn't get much. And if you were going to just, outside having a second round pick, I would have just been like, hey, maybe just keep Hield for the year and just see if he can roll you, get hot in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at is, it seemed like he was a valuable piece to the Pacers puzzle for this year. And, with this year, it's East. I mean, the Celtics are the best team in the East,
Right.
Far and away. But then you've got the Cavs, the Bucks, the Pacers match up really well with the 76ers. Embiid may not even come back, and if he does, he's coming back from injury. So, and then the Pacers are like in that next tier. So I'm not saying the Pacers could go out and win the Eastern Conference or anything like that, but like there was a path where you could at least make the Eastern Conference Finals and make some noise. And I'm not saying losing Buddy Hield now prevents that, but shaking that up, it's kind of like, all right, like, let's take a step back. Let's, we're gonna have to see where some things are at here. I don't know. I don't think it makes the team better, or I at least don't see how it does. So to me, it's kind of the Pacers brass signaling like, yeah, we don't really have belief in this year's team that this is where we're gonna make our run. So we're kind of doing Buddy a favor, getting back some second round assets and some cash, and you're kind of resigning to the fact that maybe this year isn't the year. That's kind of how I see it. As a fan, again, I'm not in those rooms. I don't know what their thought process is. I don't know who's happy, who's not. I don't know about the burner accounts and all that, and if they're true and all that good stuff. So it's hard to say, but yeah, on paper, it's just like it looks like your team got worse.
Yeah, I mean, the trying to look at it in a positive manner. By the way, I've been playing around now on Dunks and Threes, which is the like Ken Pom NBA version. It's awesome. They have a player comparison. You look at the true shooting percentage of Hield and McDermott. Over the last 7-8 seasons, or since they've both been in the league, there's only 1 year where Hield had a better true shooting percentage than Doug McDermott. Now, Hield's a much more volume shooter, but that was 2023. Every other year, McDermott, including this season, has a better true shooting percentage. And even when you look at their 3-point percentage by season, there's 5 or 6 seasons where McDermott has had a better 3-point shooting percentage than Buddy Hield, including this season, Hield shooting 38% and McDermott shooting 43% from 3. So it's like you are getting theoretically maybe a more consistent 3-point. I don't know. Hield is really good, and when he gets hot, he's in a different realm. Defensively, McDermott's a little bit better when you look at this Dunks and Threes has an estimated plus minus of defensive efficiency. Buddy Hield is much better. McDermott's a bigger kid, or bigger, 6'6", Hield's 6'4". I look at it as like, I think it's odd they kind of got like a poor man's version of Buddy Hield out of this. Like, to me, because when you also hear it's like this does free up room, which it does. It frees up room, maybe for Obi Toppin, Mathurin, even, Nesmith, like just guys to get a little more breathing room and playing time. I look at it as like you already have Jalen Smith shooting threes really well. Nesmith is one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Mathurin is growing into that role. Obi Toppin can hit some open threes. Halliburton's back and guys are getting open threes. To me, it's like, I'm not sure you needed another. That was kind of the problem with Buddy, is like you had this glut of guys. I would have been like, let's not get a McDermott. Let's just go find somebody who's a really good defender. Like, we just need, like not that he was available, like a Tyrese Maxey, or just somebody like that who's, a high level defender. But again, maybe that just wasn't out there and they couldn't get those pieces together. But that was the other thing that I think is just odd, is it doesn't really free up a ton of that room, because McDermott plays kind of a similar role that Buddy Hield was going to play.
Yeah. And yeah, it's weird. It's just kind of weird. Like I said, I can't.
Thibault. Sorry, not Tyrese Maxey. I'm going to go back. Like a Thibault type. Sorry, I said the wrong name.
I'm just saying, if we can go get Maxey, like, I'm all in. Let's do it.
I was thinking like a defensive stopper, like just someone who just like an OG Anunoby, or like, again, Thibault.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It really is. And we'll see what McDermott does. I do think, like you said, I think a big point of it is, you open up some minutes for Mathurin, Shepard, guys that you wanted, Nesmith, guys you want to develop, kind of at that wing spot. So that's good. And it's kind of the path Carlisle was already going down, when Buddy had that 12-minute game,
right?
Of getting some of these guys some good reps. And, Shepard is now fully in the rotation, which is great. Now if they could find some minutes for Jarris Walker, that'd be kind of fun too. But yeah, so it's really hard to say. Like I said, it's also really hard for me to question what this brass has done in the Pacers front office, and what Carlisle's looking for. Maybe he just absolutely loved when he had Doug McDermott and the things that he could do with him. Caitlin Cooper does tons of great Pacers film rooms, and she had talked about a set that Carlisle ran for Doug McDermott a lot, that he brought with him to the Pacers. So, he has some stuff that he specifically runs for McDermott and stuff like that. So, maybe Carlisle has just really had his eye on McDermott since he was with the Spurs. Like, it's hard to say. But at the end of the day, like, at best to me, it's a net neutral.
Yep.
It doesn't move the line either way. But I'm with you, like a wing defender. Like I even texted you when the trade first happened.
Yep.
I'm like, maybe they're looking at Marcus Morris to defend in the wing in playoff matchups or something. Because that is the one place Pacers really have some struggles is those bigger wings and being able to guard them. That's a place that they struggle guarding a lot of places. Let's be honest, but you know, so
Yeah,
it is what it is.
the Marcus Morris thing.
Exactly.
There's I think it was the Athletic had the initial breakdown of the trade, and it's like they were doing the Marcus Morris piece, and it's like the news broke that it was like then it was McDermott, and they're like, well, McDermott's going to provide them nothing that Marcus Morris was going to provide them, like or just some line of like how wildly different they are. I mean, the other way to look at it is, that it is an expiring contract, and so. While it would have been nice to get somebody that had a couple years under it, you also have to look at this Pacers team where, the contracts and the cap starts to matter in the next couple of years because they are already at next year with just signed contracts, $105 million. You assume you're going to re-sign Siakam in that $35 to $40 million range. That puts you really close to the cap. That puts you at 145 already without re-signing anybody else. And so had they taken on more money in 2024-25 next season, that could have theoretically already put them over the cap. So, I mean, that could be the other way of looking at it is maybe they didn't want anybody they didn't want to take any more money on for the next couple of years before they know kind of what they're doing with stuff. So, it continues to give them some flexibility for the next couple of years. And, everyone has talked about how, Hield was Halliburton's best friend. And that's like, that does matter, and you want to keep a good culture, but there's also, guys say this all the time. It's like, it's a business, and this is also where it's like, all right, like, and I'm not saying this is at tie at all, but it's like, if you're going to get the Supermax contract at 35, 40 million a year, and you want to bring Siakam in at 40 million, you can't have your best friend then making 20 million and providing what Buddy Hield does. Again, Buddy Hield provides something very valuable, but it's just not worth $20 million based on the cap economics of the league as it is right now.
Totally agree. And, it sounds like from what I was gathering yesterday, the extension the Pacers offer him, Buddy's not going to be able to get on the market in this offseason because his numbers are down. Now, he could go out and just set the world on fire for the Sixers.
Right.
And, maybe they'll give him a good contract or something like that. But I can't remember who I read yesterday that said it, but they'd be surprised if Buddy Hield is actually able to go out on the market this offseason based on his numbers and his age and get what the Pacers offered him. So it could be kind of a blessing in disguise he turned that down. You talked about the market too. Or the Pacers salary cap. It's also why it was so smart last year to extend Turner when they did and front load that contract.
Yep.
So that on the books, he's able to get a lot of money up front, but on the books now moving forward, it's not some massive deal that he got. And so they struck when the iron was hot, got him, they had some money to play with at the time, and that helps their flexibility moving forward as well.
The last thing too, again, giving them massive credit. To me, the best, I agree with you. The move, I think they gave Turner like an extra like $8 or $10 million last year at like this time, at like a year ago, this time just doubled his, like gave him a bunch of money for the rest of the year. Cause that's also something that's kind of, it's a very like, I forget, I think it was like Bleacher Report or The Athletic, but there are some stories like go back and look like teams that need to get to the salary floor a lot of times, and the Pacers were really close to that last year where they were really close to like the minimum salaries you had to make. A lot of times if you don't give out those big deals at the end, every player just gets a check for like $200,000 or something. And it's like, there have been stories of like, teams will sign a dude at the trade deadline to just put them over, over the floor. And then everyone's pissed because it's like, God damn it. Like that was like I was going to get a $300,000 check if you wouldn't have been signed. And it's like, anyway, side thing. The other thing that I will say, give the Pacers unbelievable credit. Not only the Turner deal, but to me, the best deal on the books they made the beginning of this year is Aaron Nesmith. That extension where they gave him 3 more years for, basically $33 million. Him at $11 million a year for 3 years. Like that to me is the hidden value of this team, that is Nesmith can continue to play at the level he's at. That's a starter of a team that could go to the Eastern Conference Finals or go to the finals. I mean, that's a dude who is playing out of his mind And if you're getting that for $11 million a year, that to me is the real value, because you're going to have Halliburton, you're going to have Siakam taking up a big amount of the cap. If you can have a dude like that playing at that level, only making $11 million for the next 3 years, that is huge, because it gives you so much more flexibility to go out and get one more guy.
Yeah, to me, it's like a better version of Bruce Brown.
Yeah.
In terms of like the kind of player that he is, 3-and-D. But yeah, so to me, it's kind of, it's a brilliant move in their part in seeing the value, and that's like the thing that the Pacers brass has done well in these trades, where I think we've talked about it before. They kind of find a guy that's not in a great situation, but they see a lot of value in, give them a role to flourish, and those guys step up and do. So it looked for a minute there, the Pacers were going back to like the 2019 Pacers. They got Doug McDermott. Corey Joseph was back on the roster for a minute. Victor Oladipo was waived. I thought they were going to go ahead and pick him up.
Monty Ellis is like, hey, man, I want back in.
I think he's still being paid, so it's
no, he's not. He's still paying Theis. Juwan Morgan still got the IU ties. I was bummed that Trace Jackson Davis didn't get in last night. No, the Joseph thing, and this is where it's like, this is where the NBA is rough, man. It's like Corey Joseph is like, hey, you're on the Warriors, and like, oh, by the way, you're traded. Oh, by the way, you're out of the league, or you're cut. Like, and now you're a completely unrestricted free agent. Like, good luck.
I love, he's getting paid a lot of money to be an unrestricted free agent, at least, so that's not all bad. I was dying laughing at Robin Lopez he got traded, and then he's in the stands last night of the Bucks game just reading a book.
Yep, just at the scores table, just right next to the bench, just reading a book. The Bucks, they got to start getting rid of family at some point. It's like, we got to get another Giannis brother in there. Last thing is, we look at contracts. Just I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but again, our podcast is less about game to game and more just kind of large scale talk that we feel like isn't out there enough with the Pacers. You mentioned Miles Turner. He got that kind of pseudo reverse extension. It kind of hit me too as I look at it. Like, next year, he's a free, like, that's his last year. So he's getting $20 million this year, 20.9. Next year, he's at 19.9. And then he's going to be a free agent in 2025, 26. I'm curious. Let's just look ahead now. Like, now it becomes, Turner feels like was on the trade block for like 8 years. I will always say this about Miles Turner. I like him. He's my son's favorite player, which I just love. He's into Legos. He seems like a great dude as best you can tell. I got to give him this credit, and then I want to ask you a question, just what you see his future being with the Pacers. But you got to give Miles Turner a ton of credit, because he comes here, it's like his first or second year. That's the year that Paul George breaks his leg. And then they start the Turner's block. And it's like, if you're Miles, like, he was kind of the face of the franchise for like 6 months there. And it's like, he has that. And then Oladipo gets traded in. And then Oladipo immediately becomes the face of the franchise. And if you're Turner, you probably thought at that trade, it's like, all right, this is my team now. Like, they traded away Paul George. Like, I'm the leader of the team. And then it's not. It's Oladipo's team. And then immediately after that, and like I never read an article where Turner's like, this is bullshit, it's my team, like, I got none of that. And then it's like, for 4 straight years, Turner's on the trade block. I'm sure it bugged him, but he never came out publicly. And then, and then he's stuck with, him and Sabonis. And it's like, he's playing out of position. I always want to make sure people give Turner credit. Like, he had a really tough stretch there where I think a lot of people could have had some moments where they just come out and just got really surly with the media, with the team. He never did. Never once. Like, I have total respect for the guy for that. All that said,
he did do that weird thing last year where he went to the Athletic and basically said, if I'm the Lakers, I'd trade for me.
Yeah, that's
that
fair.
Was a little odd.
I mean, that may not have been a bad trade. Anyway, for next year, he's $19 million, and then he's off the cap. Do you think we're going to have another, like, do you think they try and get him extended, or do you think it just becomes Miles Turner becomes a trade chip, or do we just get another, like, 12 months of what's going to happen with Miles Turner?
Probably the latter, if, there's any precedence that was set, the last decade. But I think it really depends on, the next year or two and, what value he brings to this team. With him, it at some point he's going to lose a little bounce. He's a great rim protector, great timing. Is he still going to shoot the ball well? Like, I know he's still young, but you forget that he came in the league at 19.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it just really depends on what's he doing for the Pacers. Is he worth a steep price tag? Because as the Pacers kind of move into the window of contention, there's probably one more guy they're going to have to add that's a high dollar guy in order to contend. And so at that point, it's kind of what we talked about. You got some guys that are maxed, and then you've got like guys that are making NBA minimum or vet min contracts, and so he kind of falls in that area of almost a Buddy Hield territory where he's not a superstar, not really even an all-star, but a very good piece. And like those guys' value in terms of dollars they're making in the NBA, I think in both of our estimations is going to continue to go down.
Yep.
Because of how the new aprons and the cap works with the new CBA.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's like at $20 million, it's just going to be tough because some of these guys, it's going to be like Miles. He's probably not going to get another extension at 20, 25 million. It's not going to just keep going up. His numbers, when you look at his numbers, a bunch of different metrics, but it looks like he was pretty good 3-point shooter, right around that 34, 35%, went up to 37 last year, down to 33 this year. Like all of his numbers are a little bit slightly down from last year, although he still is having a really good year. I just look at it, and if you're the Pacers, it's like it's awful to say, and I love Turner. I start off with that every time, but it's like if you can try and, if you can get two more guys like Nesmith for the price of one Turner, you've got to do it. Even if one of, if you can just get one more Nesmith type player of that level at 10 million, it's worth having another 10 million guy that just doesn't provide. Because even a guy like McConnell is at 9.3 next year. McConnell provides a lot for the team, a lot of boost. Not that Turner doesn't, but it just becomes a dollar's money thing. I look at that and I'm just like, I'm with you. And I think at that $20 million chip, his number next year, 19.9, that's a very tradable number. It's very much in the Bruce Brown range where it was last year, where you can take that and you could package it with somebody else and get a $40 million guy. You can trade that for 2 10s. Like it's a very movable number, unfortunately, for Turner.
It is. And as the Pacers enter this window of contention, yeah, it's basically them assessing, are you part of this window or not? And he very well may be. Like don't get me wrong, he's a valuable piece. I like him as well. But his greatest asset might be his rim protection. Well, he's got nobody else on the team that even plays a lick of defense right now. So like that value is kind of diminished. Now he spaces the floor well. I think he's great pairing with Siakam, because Siakam's not really a guy that's out there stretching the floor. Siakam's more of going to shoot mid-range. He's going to get to the rim. He's kind of a slasher type. So, like, I think he complements Siakam really well. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
At some point, some of these guys are going to he's going to either go to free agency, and maybe this is the year it starts to happen. Like, I'd be curious to see what Buddy Hield gets, because Buddy Hield's making, 19 this year. If Hield just drops down to getting, 13 or 14 in free agency, that'll be interesting. But this is one where it's like, if you're Turner, it's like, maybe we want you to be part of the path moving forward, but it's like, you're going to have to take a deal where it's like staggered down, like 15, 14, 12. And like, if you can get him down to 10 or 12 a year, then I think it makes sense. But anyway, that's all for next year. As it stands now, the Pacers are still in 6th place. They're one game ahead in the win column, ahead of the Heat. I'm nervous about them dropping into that 7-8 range, but again, there's kind of this group of teams. You got the Pacers, the Heat, the Magic are kind of in this spot, and the Sixers they're starting to fall. But we'll save that for next week. We have a couple more games. We have the All-Star game and then a long road trip. Tony, any final thoughts before we hop off?
Yeah, just one final one, because I saw it yesterday. Jake Fisher at Yahoo Sports tweeted out an article of just kind of like what happened and how a lot of what happened yesterday sets up the offseason for the NBA. And he noted, like, hey, Kawhi Leonard got his extension. His expectation was Paul George would get his soon after. And then he said, there's growing rumors or whatever it is around the league that Paul George is very interested in reuniting with the Indiana Pacers and playing with Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. So that one was intriguing to me. I know we've talked about that a little bit, but now that it's actually been reported that that's kind of those rumors are swirling around the league, and it could be a reason why he hasn't signed that extension with the Clippers yet. That one is intriguing.
That is well, and this, if you want to play conspiracy or if you want to play that game, it's like that's why you go and I mean you could also let Buddy Hield walk at the same price, but it's like that's why when you make this trade, it's like all right, we'll get a second rounder. We'll do a good solid on Hield. But then you also get McDermott, who's also an expiring contract. So you leave that slot open. And yeah, I mean, if you look at it, they're at 105 for next year. I mean, I just don't quite know. You sign Siakam. Let's give Siakam $40 million for next year or 35. Put him right at the Halliburton line. That puts him at 140. If you're going to get Paul George, he's going to be another 30. You're at 170. You're immediately into the second apron. There's really no other way you can get out of that. I mean, there's just, there's like no other way. And that's with you not re-signing, McDermott, you're not re-signing Obi Toppin. I guess you could, not take it's a team option on Isaiah Jackson. You could not take that.
Probably move McConnell.
Yeah, maybe move McConnell, who's it's not fully his 9.3 is not fully guaranteed. I'm not sure how that works. But yeah, I mean, there's you would be immediately over the cap, but that would be an interesting God. I would be down with that.
Yeah, the just so I quote it right, he says, Star told reporters, or Kawhi Leonard told reporters, he was of the mind Paul George's next deal was coming next before Harden's this offseason. There have been growing whispers not only of Philadelphia's eye towards George, but also George's own intrigue by returning to Indiana and becoming the latest running mate for Tyrese Halliburton alongside Siakam.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, it'd be cool to see the Pacers go all in, like try it and go all in. And again, it's not the end of the world. You have Halliburton for a while. It's like you give Siakam a 3-year deal, 3 or 4 year deals. It doesn't work at some point. He's expiring. So that's interesting. That probably, God, it's like that probably means you probably have to move off of Turner. Like that's probably a deal where like you bring in Paul George knowing you're going to trade Turner out to get rid of that cap space. But then it's like, now where's your defense in the post coming from? If you're running Halliburton,
Jarris Walker, baby.
Yeah. I mean, well, he has to play at some point, but you still need like
Jalen
maybe
Smith's playing well, but he's on an expiring too, isn't he?
He's got one more year. He's got a player option next year at 5'4", which
you'd think he wouldn't take, right?
If I'm Jalen, I don't take that. But I mean, but he's also done some very team friendly stuff. Like he also basically,
it was like everybody was like, no way he re-signs with the Pacers.
Yeah, he re-signed
the Pacers
for less.
Could offer him less money than everybody else,
and he took it. So there's something going on there. It's in a positive way. So it's going to be really interesting. I think the Pacers are in a nice flexible spot. The last that you mentioned this offseason has got me thinking. It's just, this is a Ryan Russillo take that I always agree with. Is you saw it this year with kind of like pre-agency, they called it, with OG Anunoby getting traded before the deadline, Harden getting traded, Siakam getting traded, which kind of led to kind of a boring trade deadline. But a lot of these guys are free agents this offseason, and it does feel like all, between Harden, OG, and Siakam, they're all going to re-sign with the teams that traded for them, which I think is going to mean there's not going to be a lot of free agents. And not the Pacers are in this spot, but it's like, this is where I always think it's funny. These teams are like, we're clearing all this cap space for free agency. And then it's like, you get there and it's like, all right, well, there's nobody in free agent. Like all the guys you thought that were going to be there are just not there. And a lot of times that's where you end up getting these deals where you give like a half injured Amari Stoudemire, like $70 million, or like you see these deals where it's like, kind of the Bruce Brown thing. It's like, why are you giving him $40 million? It's like, well, you got to pay somebody something. Bruce Brown's not the best deal, but you see these deals where it's like these teams save up for 3 or 4 years. And we have all of this cap space, and it's like, it's not worth anything if no one's there to pay, and then you end up paying somebody you don't really want.
Yeah, and I think it's why what the Pacers have done in going out and getting trade pieces that they can then extend in terms of superstar talent is the way you have to go in a small market. So, like, I've got nothing but great things to say about the front office in the way they've set the Pacers up. Because there was a couple years ago, right before the Halliburton trade, where like I'm like, Pritch, man, like it's do or die time, like, and he set the Pacers up well. And why I like the Siakam and the George stuff is that, like you said, Halliburton's young enough where you kind of have two windows. Like you've got your window here in the next couple of years where you've got some older talent in Siakam and George. It works out great. Then you've got another round where you can kind of go get some more guys that would want to play with him, and Halliburton's still only 27, 28 years old, like still
Yeah.
in a good spot in terms of his age range. So like I kind of like that Siakam George pairing if it were to come, just because it's like round one, and then you can in a
Yep.
few years you got round two.
I love. So all right, you're on the George. What's your percentage right now of you think Paul George on the Pacers next year?
If he really wants that,
It's done.
he's he's showcased that, like, he figures out how to get what he wants for sure in the league. And obviously, I think the Pacers would be intrigued by that. 40%, I think that he does, like, as he's gotten older and matured, he probably feels some type of way about how he left Indiana and the opportunities they afforded him, and like almost feels sorry for us. And it's kind of like a LeBron thing. Like, you go off and like
Yep.
have fun, and then you come back to like for some unfinished business. I would be in on it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was at Paul George's first game back to Banker's Life, and I booed the mess out of him. And I did not like him. Now I'm a big fan of his podcast. I like the way he plays. Like, I've matured as well. I would like to think. I would love it though. I think it'd be fun. I think it would also help. You could move. You could have Siakam and him be those wing defenders
Right.
that the Pacers have severely lacked, to guard big wings and stuff like that. And then you've got a guy in Halliburton that just gets guys the ball.
No, I mean, you could have
It's
a
intriguing, man.
starting lineup of Halliburton, Nesmith, Siakam, George, and then I don't know, get Robin Lopez is available, and just like you just need a big out there. I mean, honestly, it's like that's a really good lineup. Like that's a really really good lineup. I will say this. I'm intrigued by it also. I like the idea of the Pacers kind of going for it. The tea leaves would say, in the in-season tournament, George was saying a lot of things on his podcast, had Halliburton on there, just had nothing but really good things to say about the Pacers, which is also like the Pacers were the hot team to talk about. I would say this, and I'm going to put you in charge of this. Over the next 2 weeks, it's like if much like the 06 Heat were kind of created on the banana boat and the 04 Olympic team, I feel like if the George thing is going to happen, a lot of the seeds are going to be sown right in the next 2 weeks, because George is here for the All-Star game. It's here in Indy. It's a great time to have collusion and get everyone together. It's like, I'm going to be really curious to see what the tweets look like. Like what social media, are there anything you can, because I feel like this is the couple of weeks where if he does sign, it'll be like, yeah, man, like I came back to Indy and like I saw the way the city put it together, and like sat down with Pritch and like just walked around Gamebridge. Like, Halliburton and I went up for a steak. Like this is the week that you could do some nice collusion without really colluding, but it's like, it's all here. It's perfect. It does feel like this is the next week or two. I would also say the other piece that we don't know is like if the Clippers go and win a title, that's going to be something different. They're playing phenomenal. But it's very curious to see what they do in the playoffs, because there's also a world where Harden shits the bed again in the playoffs. And if you're Paul George, you're like, man, this is like, this ain't going to work, because they have their own problem. It's like, if those three dudes are there, you're not going to have any other money to pay anybody else. Like, that's the team, but they're also opening up a new arena. There's a lot of pieces there, but I do just wonder, if how they finish in the playoffs, how that's going to affect Paul George as well.
I agree. And I think, like, I don't know, to me, Kawhi Leonard and James Harden are kind of, like, to me, they seem like dudes that roll with, like, their posses.
Right.
I could be completely wrong. I could be way off base on this. This is me looking at it from a 40,000-foot view. But, like, it just seems like Paul George kind of wants that, like, brotherhood.
Right.
And stuff like that. And, like, that's like when he was in Indiana, he would bring the whole team to his house and they'd go out fishing on Guy's Reservoir and stuff like to me, like, that's something that Paul George wants. Like, I don't see those dudes as that. I could be completely wrong, but like, if they do crap the bed and then he's like, man, like, I just want to go hang out with Tyrese. I want to go back on Geist and what, like, come on, we'll open up the reservoir for you, Paul.
Yeah, no, and I mean, the last thing I'll say is like this: it's a world where if you're Paul George, like, if this kind of continues to go along with the Clippers this way, it's like you're one of the better Clippers. Like, it's whatever. If they win a title, unless he's just insane, it's going to be Kawhi's title. So it's like you're kind of always number two. Now you come here, you're number two behind Tyrese, but if you have some success here and you take this, you help as a number two. lead this team to a couple Eastern Conference Finals, or you get to a finals or something, you have a run with Tyrese, it's still probably not, you're not the number one alpha on this team, but it's like, because you've now done it 2 different times, like, this is like, now you're getting into, we're going to retire your number as a Pacer territory, where I'm not sure he has that home. Now, again, I'm like you, man, just a dude in Westfield. Like, I have no idea what Paul George cares about, if that matters to him or not. And maybe he would still get his number retired by the Clippers. Maybe he doesn't give a shit if he gets his number retired by anybody. But there's a world, Paul George comes back, the Pacers have some high level success. In my world, it's like, yeah, Paul George becomes one of the best, like, top 4 or 5 Pacers of all time.
Absolutely. I mean, shoot, when you intermix, him taking the Pacers to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 straight years, and there's younger years, like, I'm all in. Let's bring him back.
Oh, it's too good. It's too good. It may not happen, but we'll see. All right, Tony. Well, we'll try and hop on before the All-Star game. If not, we'll go after the All-Star game, when hopefully there's been a lot of collusion and Paul George has been shown the city in a great way. Tony, as always, thank you so much for joining. Thank everybody out there for listening. Luke, thank you for being a fan. We love it, man. We need more. Spread the word. Spread the word about the podcast. Please tell a friend, even if they're not a Pacers fan. Say, hey, you got to come check these guys out. And for everybody listening, always appreciated. For the Right Up Meridian podcast, this is Scott signing off.